Yo, what's up? It's been a long time since I tried to make a video because I don't have a computer with editing software, so there will be no cuts. This is all gonna be just off the fly, off the cuff, self-edited in the sense that it is live. Anyway, first thing I want to do is a huge apologetic shout out to my cousin Danny. It was his 22nd birthday on the 6th of this month. And because I'm a terrible human being, I missed that opportunity to wish him a happy birthday. So, cuz, this one's for you. Now, on to the main topic, I suppose. I got a chance to see Dragon Ball Super Broly just recently. And it's really interesting because I have never seen an actual proper episode of Dragon Ball Z or Super. But that's not to say that I don't know quite a bit about it. I read quite a bit of the original Dragon Ball manga, which was a lot of fun. And then I am a huge fan of Team 4 Star's Dragon Ball Z Abridged, because that show is amazing. And so through that, I kind of have a good sense of like who these characters are, what their deal is, what their shtick is. And I kind of kept up with the news about Dragon Ball Super. There's like Zamasu or whatever, we don't really care about him. And then this whole Tournament of Power thing in which Goku goes Ultra Instinct and then Shaggy went Ultra Instinct, which is pretty cool. There have been some really terrible videos about Shaggy going Ultra Instinct on the internet recently. Mighty Raccoon did one that was just like, he's One Punch Man. I'm like, that's not the point. The point is that he's reacting and it's Shaggy. And he's like, he can read people's movements. That's what Ultra Instinct is. It's like pure instinctual reaction. It makes it go super fast. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I got to see Broly. And it was really interesting because at the end of this movie, I had this huge stupid grin on my face. And my conscious brain was going, they didn't wrap up the story, they didn't wrap up the story, they didn't wrap up the story. And I had this problem when I saw How to Train Your Dragon 2, of all things. Like, that movie just didn't resolve its stuff with the bad guy. And I suppose if they knew they were going to do a third one, then that's fine. They can... I haven't seen the third one yet, so... no spoilers for that here, but... like for the second one, if you haven't seen it, then whatever. They just don't take out the bad guy. The bad guy leaves. Ta-da. He kills Hiccup's dad, and then it's just like, okay, but I guess your dragon's the alpha, bye. And Hiccup's like, yeah, go away. And it's a similar kind of thing that happens with this one. Frieza, you know, from what I've seen of Dragon Ball Z, like, he was just a straight-up bad guy for the entirety of that. And then I understand that for Dragon Ball Super, he was brought back for the Tournament of Power to help save the universe, and he did that. But it's really interesting because during this movie, you see him straight up regathering his power, rebuilding his empire, being a bad guy. And he faces next to no repercussions for that. And it's really interesting because that's an argument that Vegeta gets into with Goku right at the start. And Goku's like, it's fine, we'll just beat him if he ever becomes a problem. But while they're talking about that, his army is blowing up a planet. So there's this really interesting thing with Goku that I'm seeing kind of like for the first time, is that he's a really interesting protagonist in that he is not a straight good guy. You know, he seems to be very selfish. And that's really interesting. That makes him really compelling in my mind, because he's, you know, this is my first proper introduction to this character. I know, like, the version on Team 4 Star is great, but he's not the same version as the one in the show. And yeah, it's really interesting to see what Goku has become. And then there's this character of Broly who they make very sympathetic very early on. And all the stuff with Planet Vegeta was really good. I really enjoyed that. And they make this very sympathetic character, but then the last half of the movie is just Broly screaming. And for some reason, I loved it. So I have all these complaints about the movie, like it's an episode for sure. It's like the introduction to Broly. Frieza faces no repercussions for any of the evil shit that he does. I don't think Broly even knows that Frieza's responsible for killing his dad. He just happened to be there, so he happened to beat him up a little bit. But it's just them fighting. And it was great. And so I had this stupid grin on my face, and I had to reconcile, like, okay, this movie has narrative problems, serious narrative problems. It does so well for the first half of the film, like, so well. And all the storytelling with the fighting is actually pretty spectacular, really. Showing off a bunch of different techniques. I was under the impression that Dragon Ball had become you just punch, basically. You just punch and you scream, and if you scream loud enough, you get strong enough to win. And that's really not what happens in this fight, and it's really interesting. Like, you know, Broly is learning and adapting as he goes and discovering this untapped strength that he has, because he's never been challenged enough to unleash it before in this way, but he's just that good. And he's, you know, Vegeta and Goku are using actual, like, martial arts, like, throws and stuff on him. And he's just, like, barreling into them and grabbing him by the foot and just swinging Goku around like the Hulk in fucking Avengers. Yeah. And for some stupid reason, it was so hype. It was so good, and the choreography of the fight was so good. And they you know, they fully have a moment where they admit, like, Goku can't do this on his own. And then when Gogeta happens, it feels like a necessity to the threat level that Broly faces, and Broly's, like, just untamed power, and it's just kind of going on a rampage. So yeah, this was like, I just really wanted to do this because I had this moment of kind of recognizing that this is a narratively quite jagged movie, but that I loved it anyway. And this on its own, if this is the quality of Dragon Ball Super content, or at least movies that we're getting now, I want to see the next one. I want to see how Broly figures into the overarching plot that they're going to do, because it's going to be interesting seeing if he forms a friendship with Goku, and seeing how Frieza will manipulate him and to what ends, because now that they've kind of done multiverse stuff, I'm interested to see how Frieza will try to gain more power. I imagine one universe isn't enough. The other thing that was really interesting to see was a little bit more of, like, Saiyan culture, and, like, these are warriors for sure, but they, like, conquered planets and sold them. Like, that's how these guys made their living in the universe, and that's an awesome background. Like, that's a really awesome, and it explains the kinds of warriors you see. Explains, you know, Vegeta's very proud and merciless when it comes to fighting Broly. Like, when Broly's down, he just straight up attacks him, like, as like a kill shot. No qualms. And Goku is always looking for a good fight, and that seems to be the entirety of his character, which is fascinating, because I can imagine Goku doing really shit stuff to get a good fight. You know, Broly has expressed interest, like, more the other characters expressed, he probably doesn't even want to fight Broly. And then Goku's like, yeah, I could just find you and get into a fight with you whenever, you know, as long as you don't die. I'm like, that's fucking, you know, leave the guy alone, maybe, or not. I don't know. That's all that I wanted to say. It's kind of like just an ambling, talking about Broly. Oh yeah, the music helped get me super hype. It was just like, this kind of like in the background, they're just kind of yelling, Broly, 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 Gogeta, Gogeta, Gogeta. And it was really hype. It would have been interesting to have, like, a little bit more, like, maybe orchestral stuff, but the kind of thing that they were going for almost always worked. and the CG was noticeable, but it didn't take me out of it, which isn't the important thing. It was really just very brief shots, cut together in such a way with actual animation that I was never like, fucking get back to the animation. It all felt like the fight was good. Yeah, so that was what I wanted to say. I adored the fight sequences, and I loved the backstory, and it was a really good introduction to the actual characters of Goku after being a huge fan of Team 4 Star and Dragon Ball Z Abridged for so long. That's all I had to say. Yeah. Fuck Trump, am I right?